This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githu-Yuat. It's Monday, February 24th. This is Africa 54. South Sudan forges a unity government, renewing fragile hopes for peace. Preliminary results show Togo's Faure Gnassingbe extending the family dynasty by winning the nation's presidential election. And more young Ugandans are tackling American football, but something is missing. We begin with a major political development in South Sudan. In a giant step toward peace in a fractured nation, former rebel leader Riek Machar has been sworn in as the country's first vice president after agreeing to form a unity government with his longtime rival, President Salva Kiir. Hopes are high that the move could end years of fighting in the country. President Kiir expressed optimism for the country's future at Saturday's swearing-in ceremony, even as analysts warn that South Sudan still faces huge challenges in achieving a long-lasting, durable peace, and rights groups are calling for steps to improve human rights. Kiir and Machar had repeatedly pushed back deadlines to form a unity government of national unity, a core component of a peace accord signed in 2018. The South Sudan civil war killed 400,000 people and triggered Africa's biggest refugee crisis since the 1994 Rwanda genocide. Now for more perspective on this story, I'm joined by John Tanza, managing editor of VOA South Sudan in Focus radio program. John, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther. It's always good to be here.
Yes. Now, there have been mixed reactions in South Sudan, with a lot of people expressing doubts that this unity will last. What are you hearing from analysts?
Well, it's true that there are mixed reactions. It depends on who you speak to. People who fled the country at the height of the conflict, the refugees and the IDPs, are watching this space with a lot of caution, because these are people who left their homes under gunfire. Some of them are saying, we are yet to see if these people will really work together, because these are people who fought each other bitterly for 5 years.
So are there some issues that are still waiting to be resolved between Salva Kiir and Riek Machar?
The issue of security is paramount. The peace agreement specifies clearly that there ought to be a unified force to be deployed in the towns and specifically in Juba. Those forces were not deployed. They are still in the training camps. President Kiir, over the weekend, said he is going to be responsible for the security of Riek Machar and his delegation and the other opposition groups. But that is yet to be seen, because these are people who never trusted each other for the first time, and now they're in one room.
Okay, there's also, there's concern from President Kiir saying he was displeased about the reduction of states from 32 to 10. Is this an issue that is likely to come out again and probably cause some disunity between the two?
Well, to begin with, let's just say President Kiir surprised his supporters by reducing the number of states from 32 to 10. People in South Sudan don't know what happened. People are still wondering, why did he take that drastic step? But he came publicly and said he did that in the interest of peace. So the issue of the states, I don't think it will raise its head up again, because that was the demand of those who disagreed with Kiir. Machar's group and the other opposition groups were saying they want the state to return to 10. And now that the government is under 10 states, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But the issue of security is something to watch very keenly, because it's just like Machar took a leave from Juba and came back under the security of the government, not under what the agreement specified.
John, very quickly, what about the refugees that are scattered across the continent and elsewhere? When are they likely to return home?
You know, repatriation is voluntary. What is very crucial is for this government to convince the people outside that they are indeed serious about peace, they are indeed serious about development, they are indeed serious about reconciliation, because people left out of bitterness, and you're not going to expect them to just come back and risk their lives. So this government has to show to the people outside that they are indeed serious about what they have been telling people over the weekend.
John, thank you so much for your perspective.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Right. John Tanza is managing editor of VOA South Sudan in Focus radio program. Now, the White House on Monday is to begin subjecting immigrants to heightened scrutiny based on their perceived likelihood to rely on America's public assistance programs. Critics of the plan are calling it a racially biased wealth test. The public charge rule was given the okay by the U.S. Supreme Court last month, pending ongoing litigation. VOA's Adita Dunelari explains.
The new rules give U.S. consular or immigration officers expanded authority to deny applicants who have received public support in the form of cash or living assistance benefits or may be likely to need such support once in the United States. Critics say the criteria are a wealth test targeting the economically disadvantaged.
People who have higher incomes are less likely to be at risk. People who have more assets are less likely to be at risk, and potentially those who have less education or bigger families or lower incomes are all going to be much more likely to be at risk of denials based upon the test.
Analyst Mark Greenberg says that applicants from poor, non-white countries will be at higher risk for denial of visas or permanent U.S. residency, also known as a green card.
The likelihood of having negative factors was much greater for recent green card holders from Mexico or Central America or the Caribbean than it was for those from Europe, or Australia or New Zealand.
Supporters of the public charge rule dismiss allegations of bias.
It's a neutral rule that applies to everyone of every color, whether you're white, green, brown, yellow, or you're from any country, the same. If you're a well-off person of one race from one country, you're going to be better off than a person of another race than another country to get in it.
The policy is expected to result in fewer immigration visas and green cards approved. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the applicant can improve the chances for an immigration visa by showing proof of financial assets or income, proof of private health insurance, offer of employment in the United States, or commitment for financial support by someone residing in the United States. Some see an opportunity to conserve public funds and improve the labor market for American workers.
So while the taxpayer may have, a cheaper widget made on substandard wages, which are a market distortion, they're on the back end paying through larger government and larger social service programs that go in for healthcare costs, for any sort of other welfare, whether it's food stamps, the crime costs.
Major U.S. corporations have denounced the rule as a counterproductive hurdle for U.S. employers who want to hire international talent. Implementation of the rule comes after President Trump's director of the Office of Management and Budget, Mick Mulvaney, was quoted as saying that the United States is desperate for more legal migrants. The policy takes effect Monday in all U.S. states except Illinois, where it is on hold due to a federal court decision. Adita Dunelari, VOA News, Washington.
To West Africa now, where incumbent President Faure Gnassingbe is claiming victory in the Togo presidential election. According to preliminary results from the Electoral Commission, he was re-elected by a wide margin. His win extends a family dynasty that began in 1967 when his father seized power in a coup. David Doyle has the details.
Togolese Faure Gnassingbe has called on his rivals to accept the country's election results after declaring victory in what preliminary results suggested was a landslide.
The people have decided. We have come out victorious. It is always possible to contest, but whatever happens, victory is ours.
According to preliminary results released early on Monday, Gnassingbe won re-election with 72% of the vote, extending his 15-year rule and a family dynasty that began when his father took power in a 1967 coup. His main rival, Prime Minister Gabriel Messan Agbayome Kojo, had just 18%, even though, before the results were announced, he had claimed his camp's own tallies put him on 60%. Togo has seen protests in the past by demonstrators who say Gnassingbe has illegally outstayed his welcome. When he came to power in 2005, mass protests were met by a violent police crackdown in which at least 500 people were killed. In response to political pressure, Gnassingbe enacted a law last year limiting presidents to 2 5-year terms. But it did not account for the 3 terms he has already served, allowing him to stay in power until 2030.
He promised us, and again tonight he came to reassure us, and he will hold his promises. I have faith in him, and he will do it.
One of the promises Gnassingbe has long made has been to boost economic development. The country has seen economic growth of around 5% in recent years, driven by investment in energy and transport. But challenges over grinding poverty and labour strikes remain. According to the International Monetary Fund, Togo is the 10th poorest country in the world.
Our thanks to Reuters for that report. Now to the rapidly spreading coronavirus. China is reporting over 400 new infections on Monday, pushing its total number of cases past 77,000. Most of the new cases were reported in Hubei province, ground zero for the outbreak. China also reported 150 new deaths and an overall new death toll to over 2,500. Outside China, at least 2,000 people have been infected worldwide, and more than 24 have died. Meanwhile, Italy now has the highest number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Europe. VOA's Ladza Hook reports.
The popular Venice Carnival ended Sunday, 2 days ahead of schedule, with some people questioning the decision.
It is useless to stop a carnival because there are hospitals and bars and supermarkets and restaurants and trains and planes and ferries, which are all open spaces. So how do you solve this problem? Stopping a carnival? It's all ridiculous.
About 50,000 people cannot enter or leave several towns in Veneto and Lombardy for the next 2 weeks without special permission. Police have been deployed to ensure compliance with the order. Even outside the 2 provinces, many businesses and schools have suspended activities. Sporting events have been cancelled until March. Italy's celebrity designer Giorgio Armani presented his new collection behind the closed doors. But the northern town of Ivrea kept its doors open to thousands of visitors who attend the annual Battle of Oranges, which is the highlight of Ivrea's carnival season.
For sure, a carnival like this one that brings so many tourists, you could say is problematic. On the other hand, to block such an event with 15,000 people taking part brings other problems.
But the mayor of Ivrea said public health comes first, and the carnival will be suspended if the government orders it.
In total, the people infected are 152 at the moment and 3 dead. As you know, there was a person in intensive care who died in hospital in Cremona a few minutes ago. The numbers region by region are Lombardy has 110, Veneto has 21, and Emilia-Romagna there are 9 and 2 in Lazio.
The source of the coronavirus outbreak in Italy is still being investigated. A businessman who had recently returned from China tested negative for the virus. South Korea announced Sunday it is raising its alert to the highest level due to a growing number of coronavirus cases, more than 600 so far, including 6 deaths.
The coronavirus situation faces a serious turning point. The next few days will be crucial.
The new strain of coronavirus that causes pneumonia has spread from central China's city of Wuhan, infecting close to 77,000 people on the mainland and killing close to 2,500, according to the latest report on Sunday. President Xi Jinping described the outbreak as the largest public health emergency since the foundation of the People's Republic of China. Zlarica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
And you're watching Africa 54. We'll be right back.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Thousands of Kenyan school children are now receiving hot lunches thanks to a wristband which works on short-range Wi-Fi connections. The Tap to Eat app is aimed at hungry children who were skipping school to find food which their parents couldn't afford. Teachers say academic performance is improving as a result. Food for Education claims it uses smart logistics to ensure the food is produced in a sustainable way, while at the same time ensuring local farmers are given a reliable source of income. Its website says the growth of 1 in 4 Kenyan children is stunted because of a lack of nutrition. Next up, in his latest collection for his youthful Emporio Armani line, Giorgio Armani offered women a range of options that are appropriate for their age and shape. The collection took a stand against trends, targeting youthful dressers who are not necessarily that young. For next fall and winter, he crafted a range of jackets, from long and flowing to short and pleated. Trousers were dressed up with silk draping. And finally, a robot snake developed at Johns Hopkins University could help advance search and rescue technology. Assistant Professor of Mechanical Engineering at Johns Hopkins University, Chen Li, and his team merged fields of engineering, physics, and biology to study movements made by snakes to help build their project. Research found that the snake robot built by Li was speedier and more stable than that from most previous studies. However, due to the structure of the body suspension, his robot required more electricity. The team plans to test it on more complex 3D terrains with large obstacles. And that's what's trending today.
The Prime Minister of Lesotho appeared in court Monday, but the murder case against Thomas Thabane failed to proceed as the magistrate referred the matter to the Constitutional Court to decide whether a sitting Prime Minister can be charged with any crime. The 80-year-old leader is accused of killing his estranged wife, Lipolelo, in 2017. The couple were going through a bitter divorce at the time of her murder. The Prime Minister denies killing his former wife. It is not immediately clear when the Constitutional Court will hear the matter. Meanwhile, on Monday, a spokesman for Lesotho's ruling All Basotho Convention Party says the party wants Thabane to resign immediately and hand over the post to the party chairman, Samuel Rapapa. A study by the Nielsen Ratings Service says African Americans are among the nation's top consumers of social media, especially when it comes to information about presidential politics. A U.S. intelligence report says that made them a primary target of Russia's disinformation campaign to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election, an effort Moscow is widely expected to repeat in this year. VOA's Chris Simpkins reports from the southern U.S. state of South Carolina.
Joe Biden's going to have to do, he's going to have to separate himself from Obama.
These African-American college students say they get most of their political information from social media.
You can find out everything you need to know through social media and internet. So I think that's the best outlet to figure out everything.
But these voters say they are scrutinizing information they receive on social media about the 2020 presidential race, trying to figure out if it's real or not. The heightened awareness comes as security experts warn voters, especially African Americans, to be on the lookout for misinformation campaigns aimed at polarizing and dividing the electorate. Ron Wood says he saw Facebook content that aimed to keep him and others from voting in 2016.
They're going to do whatever in their power to discourage people from voting. And there again, if you're not engaged and you're not informed, then your vote can easily be depressed.
A U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee report released last year concluded Russian influencers targeted African Americans on social media more than any other group during the 2016 presidential campaign. South Carolina campaign worker Garrett McDaniel says it's vital African Americans and all voters verify political information on social media.
2016 definitely raised a red flag, especially when we saw how the Russian government was manipulating the black vote specifically, making false pages for advocacy groups like Black Lives Matter.
U.S. security officials say Russian trolls created fake social media posts to influence black voters. It was designed to exploit social divides and partisan loyalties and erode trust between Americans and their institutions.
In a broad respect, social media plays that role of sort of reinforcing individuals' sort of pre-existing views in some regards. And so I think it has that effect also in Black America. It becomes not just an echo chamber, but really kind of black social media serves as a forum for community discourse and discussion.
The Senate Intelligence Report maintains thousands of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube accounts were created by the Russian-based Internet Research Agency to harm Hillary Clinton's campaign and support Donald Trump. Monica Bickert, head of global policy for Facebook, told U.S. lawmakers how the company plans to guard against Russian influence in the 2020 elections.
As soon as we find something that those fact-checking organizations rate false on our platform, we dramatically reduce the distribution, and we put next to it related articles so that anybody who shares that gets a warning that this has been rated false.
Davian Petty works with students at South Carolina State University on how to decipher political information on social media. He says he's optimistic going forward.
I think with the exposure from this past election, I think we don't have to worry about that as much because it's under high scrutiny, under high watch.
Social media companies say they've redoubled security measures aimed at finding and removing coordinated manipulation campaigns before they spread malign content. Even so, many African Americans say they are taking matters in their own hands and striving to be more careful social media users. Chris Simpkins, VOA News, Columbia, South Carolina.
We begin our sports report in Los Angeles, where at least 20,000 people are expected inside the Staples Center Monday for a memorial to celebrate the life of retired international basketball superstar Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, and 7 others who died in a helicopter crash on January 26th in the LA suburb of Calabasas, California. At the time of the crash, Bryant, an 18-time All-Star, was on his way to a youth sports academy for a girls' basketball tournament his daughter was scheduled to play in. Kobe, 41, and Gianna, 13, were buried in a private funeral service in early February. Now, more young people in Uganda are tackling the sport of American football after learning the game from American volunteers in the country. As Halima Thumani reports from Kampala, some schools want to include the game into their sports curriculum, but there is an urgent need for coaches.
Ugandan Stephen Okeng was visiting a friend at an orphanage in 2014 when he noticed American volunteers introducing their children to a game he had only watched on TV. The 27-year-old architect asked if he could also play and quickly became hooked on American football. Okeng started organizing players and in 2015 formed the American Football Federation Uganda.
As the game continues to grow, we have very many institutions and secondary schools that are willing to have the game adopted into the sports curriculum. But we find that our biggest challenge are the coaches. We don't have the resources, the human power to go and help us with the sport.
Okeng spread the game to 4 regions of the country, and in 2018, Uganda's National Council Sports recognized the sport's growing popularity with $10,000 to help fund the federation. Council spokesman Ismail Dakava says American football has shown great potential in schools, especially those teaching English.
The language that you're going to use to teach the sport is very important. It's a sport whose technicalities are entirely in English. Touchdown, quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker. Those do not have anywhere in local dialect that you're going to be able to translate them. So it's easier when you introduce them within the school system where people are studying English, because then it's very easy for them to interpret what is happening.
While most players are male, women also are playing. They include the Chambogo University's team captain, Caroline Ajidru. She says it's a challenge to convince Ugandan women that American football is not too rough of a game.
I think girls will join. Not only that, we've not been having that routine training that has kept them away. But some have come, we're like 5, others are still coming, and I'm still convincing them.
To convince more young people to play the game, Uganda's coaches often train by playing flag football instead of the full contact sport. Chambogo team coach Imran Sumuju says players have shown great promise in regional competitions.
We are in a flag football, whereby these players need to first understand in the routes they are running, the formations they're installing within the game, whether defense or offense or running back or wide receiver. But when you look at the players, the way they catch, they are good, only that they lack some facilities that we use in these techniques.
Uganda's National Council of Sports this year plans to sponsor the team for a training tour of the United States. They want Uganda's players and coaches to learn more from the National Football League, the organization responsible for professional American football. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Kampala.
Thank you, Halima. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.